June 1877, Idaho Territory. In this narrow canyon, families of the Nee Me Poo live here with their horses and lodges, still hoping to move in peace, even as pressure from soldiers and settlers closes in.
From the north, blue-coated cavalry ride toward the canyon, sent to enforce orders that demand removal to a single reservation. Many of these soldiers are new to this country, unfamiliar with the ridges, ravines, and riders who know every fold of the land. Leaders like Chief Joseph and White Bird face a grim decision. They have agreed to move, yet kill at first light, a peace party forms. They carry a white flag, hoping to speak before anyone fires a shot. From above, the soldiers see riders with a white flag, but also warriors on the slopes. White Bird Canyon is quiet for a final moment. The question hangs in the air. Will this be a peaceful surrender, or the first clash of the Nez Perce War?
To understand White Bird Canyon, we have to begin in the Wallowa country, where Nee Me Poo sits. In 1855, a treaty at Walla Walla recognized a large Nez Perce reservation that still covers. 8 years later, a new agreement in 1863 shrank that reservation by most of its area, opening.
Across these meetings, the United States spoke with written treaties, while Nee Me Poo leaders defended older promises and the right to remain on their own lands.
As years passed, cabins, ranches, and small towns spread over valleys that the treaty had once reserved. Among the Wallowa band, leaders like Chief Joseph chose negotiation and caution, knowing that an open
White Bird, whose band camped near White Bird Creek, carried the weight of decisions on this southern front.
At Fort Lapwai, General Oliver Otis Howard worked under orders to bring all Nee Me Poo bands onto one reservation.
In the spring of 1877, Howard called the leaders together and gave a clear message. All non-treaty bands were to move to the reservation within 30 days.
When Tulzote spoke firmly against this deadline, Howard had him confined, a public act that Nee Me Poo witnesses remembered as a deep humiliation.
Despite this, Joseph and other leaders agreed that they must avoid immediate war. Camps broke, lodges closed.
They drove horses and cattle along narrow trails toward the Salmon River, carrying elders and children, trusting that
Behind the main decisions, younger warriors carried their own anger over killings and insults that had never been punished, and some began to speak of revenge.
Several settlers were killed in the region around the Salmon River, in attacks that followed years of unresolved violence on both sides.
News of the killings raced by telegraph and courier. For settlers and officials, it signaled a feared uprising.
by mid-June 1877, two paths were closing in on the same narrow valley. One carried families and herds.
Word rides in from the rear of the column. Several settlers have been killed near their homesteads. The message spreads from lodge to lodge like a spark in dry grass.
Mothers gather children closer, listening to hurried explanations. No one is sure who took part.
That night, elders and leaders sit in council. Some insist the men who struck back acted from long-held grief.
Joseph argues that a full war cannot be won. He urges his people to keep moving toward the agreed zone, hoping to explain.
In the settlements around Mount Idaho, news arrives differently. Rumors of a general uprising race along the...
Local officials send urgent messages. They report murdered settlers, rising panic, and call for troops to protect the district and punish those responsible. At Fort Lapwai, a wire from Mount Idaho tells of killings and demands swift action. Howard must answer. He orders a field force to move south, recover the bodies, and force the surrender of the men accused.
Captain David Perry and Captain Joel Graham Trimble call their men to saddle. About 100 cavalry with some...
Nee Me Poo scouts and army service stand between two worlds. They know the canyons and the camps ahead. They also know what it means when soldiers ride.
The column moves out under a clear northern sky, following the road toward Mount Idaho and the canyons beyond.
Far from the fort, another set of eyes tracks the same riders. Scouts loyal to the moving Nee Me Poo camp. By the time the families reach White Bird Creek, they know that soldiers are on the way. The canyon is both shelter...
Inside the lodges, elders talk about the coming days. Some remember earlier promises made by...
White Bird and his fellow leaders agree on a plan. They will send out a peace party at dawn, carrying a white flag.
Later, Yellow Wolf would remember the feeling of that night. He said they did not want war that morning, only to ask why the soldiers were coming.
At Mount Idaho, Perry gathers more details. Settlers describe the killings and frightened.
Over a rough map, Perry plots his approach. The plan is simple. Move toward the canyon, locate the camp.
The column rides on, growing more tired as the hours pass. Horses sweat and stumble on loose rock. From the heights above the canyon, scouts study the moving dust. They count roughly 100 cavalry.
War leaders shape the ground into a plan. Warriors will take the high places on both sides, while the peace party waits in the...
Non-combatants move to shelter near the creek and low bluffs. They carry food, blankets, and what they can. Before sunrise, men lead horses along hidden paths to the heights.
On the plateau above, the cavalry mounts and turns toward the canyon mouth. Below them, Nee Me Poo families wait by the creek. As dawn lifts the mist from White Bird Canyon, the cavalry reaches the rim and sees the Nee Me Poo camp spread along the creek far below.
He orders an advance party forward under Lieutenant Edward Theller, with scouts and volunteers to feel out the camp and speak if possible before the main force moves in.
The small group rides down first, hooves clattering on stones, while the main column waits on the rim. Right from the camp, a Nee Me Poo peace party rides to meet them under a white flag, determined to ask why the soldiers are coming before any shot is fired.
Venimos en son de paz. Queremos hablar.
Han llegado tarde. Digan sus términos o retírense.
The advance party rides on. Scouts sense danger in the high ground, while at least one volunteer focuses on the riders ahead, reading threat.
In this charged moment, one pull of a trigger decides the day. Arthur Chapman's rifle cracks.
The bullet shatters the truce!
From the western ridge, Ollokot's warriors answer with controlled volleys, sending fire down into the open ground where the advance party has no shelter.
On the eastern side, a smaller group adds its fire. Bullets and arrows fall around the riders, turning a cautious approach.
The advance party breaks under the sudden storm of fire. Men and horses go down.
Above them! Harry hears the first volleys and throws his command into motion.
Company F stretches along the left, dismounting to fire upslope. They can see only flashes of movement and brief puffs of smoke against the skyline.
Company H struggles to reach better ground on the right. Men dart from fold to fold, tripping over fallen horses as the fire from above tightens around them.
Ollokot moves his men like water along the ridge, shifting them to where the line below is weakest, never staying long enough for the soldiers to fix their aim.
Move up, men! Secure the knoll! Anchor the line now! We can't hold them! We have to move now! Company F is routed! All units, fall back to the ridge! Move!
Feller and a handful of men find themselves trapped in a shallow draw. They fire steadily, using every round they have, determined not to run even as the circle tightens.
As the main body breaks toward the head of the canyon, mounted warriors swing into pursuit, pressing the retreat, firing.
Some soldiers abandon their mounts entirely, clawing up steep slopes on foot, dragging wounded...
In the confusion, dropped carbines and pistols become prizes. Warriors lean from their saddles to seize them.
When the last organized groups reach the upper slopes, the canyon floor is left behind, marked by fallen men. Warriors move back through the field, checking for survivors, then gathering the rifles, pistols, and ammunition that will sustain their fight in the weeks to come.
From sheltered places near the camp, women, elders, and children watched their warriors return.
On the prairie above, Perry and the survivors form a shaky ring near a ranch. By late morning, the first clash of the Nez Perce War is over. The Nee Me Poo hold the canyon and new weapons.
When the firing stops, the canyon holds a heavy silence. 34 cavalry soldiers lie dead, with
Berries. The captured carbines and pistols are laid out and counted. For a community on the move, these weapons are not trophies.
In camp, the work does not stop. Women dress wounds.
The Nee Me Poo bury their own first. Few have been killed, but each loss strikes deep in a community.
From the prairie above, survivors and settlers organize a burial party. They ride back into the...
The soldiers are lifted onto wagons and carried away. There is no music, only...
Telegraph keys click into the night. Messages report the defeat at White Bird Canyon, listing the dead and asking for reinforcement.
At Fort Lapwai, Howard studies the figures.
Within days, a stronger force gathers. Infantry, more cavalry, and wagons packed with food and ammunition.
Down along the creek, leaders of several bands meet. They know the army will not accept this defeat.
Joseph speaks of heading east toward the high passes, and perhaps Canada, away from the gathering columns.
The decision becomes movement. Herds leave the canyon first, followed by the lodges and families. Warrior. The Nee Me Poo use the country they know best. They cross and recross the Salmon River, choosing routes that...
Howard's men find going far harder. Wagons stall on rocky slopes.
Near Cottonwood, small clashes show that the canyon defeat was no accident.
On a campaign map, the path after White Bird Canyon begins to take shape. Each new date and place is another.
In nearby towns, early newspaper reports frame White Bird Canyon as a sharp defeat and a warning. For many readers, for the Nee Me Poo, the victory does not bring safety. Each night is spent in new ground, with watchfire.
Captured ammunition is carefully divided. Each cartridge is now more valuable, because every future fight will depend on how these limited supplies are used.
Howard's camp settles under canvas and lamplight. His officers debate how to bring the Nee Me Poo to battle again without repeating the mistakes of White Bird Canyon.
On paper and in memory, different records of the same fight begin to form. Army clerks write down names.
Step by step, the Nee Me Poo turn away from Idaho Territory's centers of power. Their path now runs...
Joseph's presence at the front offers calm, but his thoughts are heavy. The victory at White Bird Canyon has saved them.
Behind them, Howard's column follows, slowed but determined. Between the two forces lies...
From White Bird Canyon, the war spreads across 4 territories. The Nee Me Poo...
In July 1877, General Howard brings his larger force to the Clearwater. The Nee Me Poo fight hard.
They take their families over high passes under cover of darkness, trusting mountain paths to protect them from heavy wagons and slower infantry.
The cost is terrible. Graves cut into the stony ground hold families who never wanted this war.
The pursuit continues through Montana. At Canyon Creek and other skirmishes, Nee Me Poo riders use...
In field tents, officers review each action. Reports acknowledge that the Nee Me Poo move faster and choose ground better than regular troops expected.
By late September, near Bear's Paw, the long chase nears its end. Cold weather and repeated battles have won.
A hard fight follows. Some Nee Me Poo under leaders like White Bird break through toward Canada.
At last, with people starving and freezing, Joseph walks out to talk. His surrender is carefully recorded.
At Fort Leavenworth, they live behind fences, hundreds of miles from familiar rivers and mountains, waiting on decisions made in offices they will never see. From there, many are moved again to Indian Territory. The land is hotter, flatter, and feels like another world compared to Idaho and Montana.
In the capital, officials debate what to do. Reports weigh costs, casualties, and political pressure.
In the years that follow, survivors are divided among several reservations. Some return to the Nez Perce reservation.
New schooling policies aim to replace language and custom with English and uniform lessons.
Artists and storytellers answer in their own way, recording White Bird Canyon, the flight, and the later battles in drawing.
Decades later, the canyon itself looks quiet again. Grass grows where men once.
In time, the United States marks White Bird Battlefield as a historic site. New signs.
The legal end of the war came in 1877, but its aftermath runs far longer.
Today, White Bird Canyon is a quiet landscape again, its slopes covered in grass and its creek running clear.
At the battlefield, interpretive signs speak of soldiers and Nee Me Poo together, acknowledging that the story begins.
Exhibits now show treaty maps, portraits, and original words from leaders on both sides, inviting visitors.
For Nee Me Poo people, the site is more than a chapter in national history. It is a place to honor and...
In classrooms on the reservation, teachers trace the flight of 1877 on maps, beginning at White Bird Canyon and following each turn.
Language classes work to keep Nee Me Poo words strong, pairing stories about the war with the language in which those events were first remembered and shared.
Historians have studied the battle for decades, weighing Army reports against tribal accounts and oral history. Scholars now agree on central points. The battle was a clear Nee Me Poo victory, rooted in treaty violations and land law.
Memorials now mark both the soldiers who died and the Nee Me Poo who fought and endured, reminding visitors.
Community events and gatherings show another legacy. Despite war, exile, and division among reservations.
From above, the canyon appears timeless, yet understanding its history changes the view. Each bend in the creek.
This entire valley was a battlefield for centuries. Every rock down there holds a story.
In the long arc of history, White Bird Canyon stands as the first clash in a hard campaign, a measure of Nee Me Poo's skill and resolve.